They say every time a Targaryen is born, the gods toss a coin and the world holds its breath.
The shadow of the dragon. For 100 years, Westeros bled in the name of dragons. Brother fought brother, sons killed fathers, and the blood of House Targaryen soaked the realm in fire and steel. 300 years after Aegon the Conqueror's triumph, his descendants nearly destroyed everything he built. The Targaryens didn't fall to an enemy army. They were torn apart by their own blood. It began with a king called Aegon the Unworthy and a bastard with a sword named Blackfyre. This was not just a war for a throne. It was a war for identity, who truly carried the blood of the dragon. And though it ended generations ago, its echoes still shape the world of ice and fire. Because some say the Blackfyres never truly died. Aegon the Unworthy, the king who broke his own house. King Aegon IV ruled with gluttony, lust, and spite. He gorged on food, gold, and women, fathering dozens of bastards while scorning his lawful wife and heir. His queen, Rhaenys Targaryen, was gentle and pious, and utterly miserable. Their son, Prince Daeron, was thoughtful, kind, and bookish, everything Aegon hated. So the king spread a poison through his own court. The rumor that Daeron wasn't his son at all, but the bastard of his brother Aemon the Dragon Knight. Amid this chaos was one bastard who captured Aegon's pride, Daemon Waters, son of Aegon, and his cousin Dina the Defiant. At 12, Daemon was already tall, fierce, and gifted with a sword. Then came the moment that changed history. Before the court of King's Landing, Aegon placed the ancient Valyrian steel blade Blackfyre, the sword of Aegon the Conqueror himself, into Daemon's hands. That act, a gift, a symbol, a spark, would ignite a century of bloodshed. On his deathbed, bloated and rotting from disease, Aegon the Unworthy committed his final sin. He legitimized all his bastards. The seeds of civil war were sown. Aegon's reign was a warning written in blood, proof that the downfall of dynasties often begins not with enemies, but with ego. His hunger for indulgence, his cruelty toward those who loved him, and his reckless legitimization of his bastards didn't just split his family, it split the realm's soul. From his deathbed, rot sprouted the seeds of ambition, pride, and vengeance that would grow into generations of fire. And as the realm whispered the name Blackfyre for the first time, none could yet imagine how much that single word would come to mean, or how much it would cost. Daeron the Good and Daemon the Great. King Daeron II, known as the Good, wanted peace, a scholar on a throne of swords. He ended centuries of war by uniting Dorne with Westeros through marriage to Maria Martell. But peace came at a cost. The proud Marcher lords of the Reach and Stormlands saw Dorne as their enemy, not their ally. They whispered that Daeron's son, Baelor Breakspear, was no true Targaryen, his dark hair proof of Dornish corruption. They turned their eyes instead to Daemon Blackfyre. Daemon was everything Daeron was not. Tall, strong, valiant, a warrior with the gleaming sword Blackfyre in his hand. To many, he looked like the true heir of Aegon the Conqueror. Behind him stood two of the great bastards, Aegor Bittersteel Rivers, fierce and wrathful, and Brynden Bloodraven Rivers, pale, cunning, and cold. Both men loved the same woman, the sorceress Shiera Seastar, and hated each other with a passion that would burn for decades. Their rivalry and their love for Daemon would fracture the Targaryen dynasty forever. When the whispers grew into banners and the black dragon of Daemon was raised against the red dragon of Daeron, Westeros fell into war, the first of many. Daeron dreamed of unity, a peaceful kingdom where Dorne and the rest of Westeros shared one throne, one future. But peace requires humility, and pride is the lifeblood of the dragon. Daemon didn't crave peace. He craved destiny. To his followers, he wasn't rebelling. He was restoring what had been stolen. When the black dragon banner rose above the fields, it was more than politics. It was identity, old blood demanding recognition. In that moment, the question became eternal. Should a king be born from honor and intellect, or forged from strength and fire. Westeros chose chaos. The Redgrass Field, brothers, arrows, and the death of a dynasty. The first Blackfire rebellion split the realm in two. Demon Blackfire, bearing the Sword of Kings, led tens of thousands under his Black Dragon banner. His men called him the True King. At the Battle of the Redgrass Field, fire met fire. Daemon charged into battle, cutting down knights like wheat. He faced Sir Gawain Corbray of the Kingsguard, whose Valyrian blade, Lady Forlorn, sang against Blackfire. Their duel was so fierce that men paused just to watch. Daemon defeated Corbray, and in that moment of mercy, helping his foe to safety, he sealed his fate. From the hills, Bloodraven loosed a storm of arrows tipped with weirwood, guided, some said, by sorcery. 3 struck Daemon in the chest, 2 more hit his sons. The Black Dragon fell. Bittersteel fought like a demon to avenge his brother, clashing with Bloodraven and losing an eye in the process. But the rebellion was crushed. Bittersteel fled east with the surviving sons of Daemon. Together, they formed a new brotherhood, mercenaries bound by exile and vengeance. They called themselves the Golden Company and swore an oath: beneath the gold, the bitter steel. The Redgrass Field became more than a battlefield. It became a memory burned into the heart of the realm. For generations, songs would tell of Daemon's courage and Bloodraven's arrow, of brothers bound by hate and destiny. Yet for all its glory, the battle proved only one truth: even kings bleed red. The grass that day didn't just drink the blood of warriors, it drank the future of a house. As smoke rose over the valley, men realized that the Dragon's War would not end with Daemon's fall. The wounds of Redgrass would fester for 100 years. Bloodraven's reign and the sons of the Black Dragon. The war ended, but peace never came. King Daeron reigned, yet the true power lay in Bloodraven's hands. His network of spies, the 1,000 Eyes and One, watched the realm from the shadows. Years later came the Second Blackfire Rebellion, led by Daemon II, a dreamer who saw visions of dragons reborn. But his rebellion fell apart before it began, crushed by none other than Sir Duncan the Tall and his young squire Egg. In the story, The Mystery Knight, Bloodraven imprisoned Daemon II and ruled more ruthlessly than ever. His creed was simple: mercy breeds rebellion. He was right. Soon, Aegon Blackfire rose with Bittersteel and the Golden Company, launching the Third Rebellion. Once again, Westeros drowned in dragon's blood. Aegon surrendered and was executed treacherously. Some said it was Bloodraven's doing. 3 rebellions, 3 generations of hate, and the question lingered: was Bloodraven the realm's savior or its curse? Under Bloodraven, the realm lived in the shadow of unseen eyes. He ruled from the darkness, believing himself the necessary monster in a world too fragile for mercy. Every whisper, every shadow might be his. To some, he was savior. To others, the second curse of the Targaryens. Yet even as he crushed rebellion after rebellion, his victory hollowed him. Bloodraven became proof that control can consume its wielder. That in trying to protect the dragon's blood, he became the very thing that poisoned it. The throne was safe, but the soul of the realm was gone. King Egg and the Fourth Rebellion. When King Aerys I died, chaos followed. His brother Maekar became king, but his death left the throne empty. A council was called to choose the next ruler. Among the claimants came Aenys Blackfire, son of Daemon I. He claimed the right to speak his case, and Bloodraven swore safe passage. But when Aenys arrived in King's Landing, Bloodraven had him seized and beheaded. The council chose instead a humble young prince, Aegon Egg Targaryen, former squire to Sir Duncan. He became Aegon V, the king of the common folk. Egg's first act was vengeance. He stripped Bloodraven of his titles and sent him to the Wall, where he would later become the mysterious Three-Eyed Crow. But the Blackfires were not done. Daemon III crossed the sea with Bittersteel and the Golden Company, beginning the Fourth Blackfire Rebellion. On the Wendwater Bridge, Sir Duncan the Tall met Daemon in single combat and struck him down. Bitter Steel fled one last time, dying years later in Essos, his skull gilded in gold, carried into battle by the Golden Company as a relic of revenge. Beneath the gold, the bitter steel. The words lived on. King Aegon V's reign promised light, a return to compassion after centuries of vengeance. But even he could not escape the ghosts of his family's past. His ideals were forged beside commoners, yet the fire of old blood still burned beneath his crown. When the Fourth Rebellion came, it was not just a war of swords, but of ideas. Mercy versus fear, justice versus vengeance. Dunk's victory over Daemon III was as symbolic as it was brutal. A knight of humble birth, slaying a pretender of pure Valyrian blood. Perhaps, finally, the realm had learned. The last Blackfire, Maelys the Monstrous, and the War of the Ninepenny Kings. Decades passed. The dragons were gone, but the Blackfires endured, their vengeance now led by a monster. Maelys the Monstrous, last of the Blackfire line, was a brute born from legend. So massive he could crush a man's skull with his bare hands. Some said a tiny second head grew from his neck, the remains of the twin he devoured in the womb. Maelys led the Golden Company and joined a coalition of exiles and warlords called the Ninepenny Kings. Together, they seized the Stepstones and Tyrosh, preparing to invade Westeros. The realm united to stop them. The great houses marched: Starks, Lannisters, Arryns, Tullys, Martells, and Baratheons. Young knights like Tywin Lannister, Steffon Baratheon, and Barristan Selmy earned their first taste of glory. On a field of smoke and ash, Barristan the Bold cut his way through the Golden Company and struck down Maelys the Monstrous. After 5 generations, the Blackfire bloodline ended, but not the legacy. The Golden Company swore to carry Bittersteel's skull until the day they returned to Westeros. And perhaps that day has come. Maelys's death was meant to end the Blackfire curse, but curses don't die. They linger. His monstrous birth, his hunger for conquest, his second head, all became symbols of what generations of hate can create. The Ninepenny Kings' War was not a rebellion. It was a requiem, the last scream of a dying dream. And when Barristan Selmy cut down Maelys beneath a foreign sun, he didn't just slay a man, he ended a century of blood. But as the Golden Company carried Bittersteel's gilded skull from the ashes, even they knew some legacies refuse to burn. The Mummer's Dragon. 100 years later, a boy sails west under a false name, young Griff, the supposed son of Rhaegar Targaryen. Backed by Varys, Illyrio, and the Golden Company, he seeks to claim the Iron Throne. But prophecy speaks of a Mummer's Dragon, a false king born of lies. The Golden Company has always fought against Targaryens, so why follow one now, unless young Griff isn't a Targaryen at all, but a Blackfire? If true, the war that began with Aegon the Unworthy still burns, disguised under new banners. And in the end, what is truth in a world where power resides where men believe it resides? Maybe the true heir doesn't matter. Maybe the throne itself is the lie, a shadow that makes men monsters. The Blackfires are gone, their blood scattered, but their curse remains. Because in Westeros, no dynasty ever truly dies.